All right, let's go ahead and call the Senate to order. The Sergeant at Arms will please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, this evening we are very pleased to have Father James Nash of Saints Peter and Paul Parish and School in Easton, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from the 37th District. Please rise for the invocation.
Thank you. Let us pray. Good and loving God, as with all things, we begin by offering you our praise and thanks for the blessings you have bestowed on us. We thank you for this opportunity, for this gathering, a gathering that is truly a testament to the country in which we live and the freedoms it offers to each of us. Bless these men and women with your wisdom as they make decisions for the betterment of our state and its citizens. May these deliberations bear fruit for the good of all, especially the poor and the most vulnerable. We make our prayer in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Well said. Thank you. That's wonderful. Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th District.
Yes, Mr. President. I'd request that we journalize the prayer by Father Nash. Father Nash is a leader, a local leader, multi-denominational. He's active throughout the community, and he's no stranger to Annapolis. And he's made a lot of time to be available to help many people in many different ways, including our elected officials. So I want to thank him personally for the time and request that we journalize his remarks.
Most certainly, without objection, we will journalize the Reverend's wonderful remarks, and he said he had a great dinner with you. So the trip over the bridge was worth it. Well worth it. Well worth it. Excellent. All right, as everyone recorded their presence in the chamber, appears so, clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. Believe we have a guest, or several guests, if we could have them join us here. Yes, Chair recognizes our physician senator from Howard and Anne Arundel counties.
Thank you, Mr. President. On January 20th, 1799, right here in Annapolis, leaders of Maryland's medical profession convened to hear that their petition for a charter for an incorporated society of physicians and surgeons had been approved by this very body. The medical and chirurgical faculty of the state of Maryland, now known as MedChi, was founded by physicians who were concerned about the welfare and of citizens at the time when people were practicing medicine without training or qualifications. On June 3rd, 1799, the 101 founders from every county in the state met to begin the fight against the prevalence of less than proven and unscientific healing arts by establishing regulatory and educational standards. For 225 years, MedChi's members have made innumerable achievements for physicians and patients in elevating and preserving quality healthcare delivery. Today, MedChi speaks on the behalf of more than 22,000 licensed physicians in the state who practice in more than 50 medical specialties. This proclamation commemorates the January 20th, 2024 as MedChi's 225th birthday. If I could ask the body to join in a round of applause for this achievement.
If we could have the clerk read the resolution in full.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to the medical and chirurgical faculty of the state of Maryland in recognition of the 225th anniversary of being Maryland's foremost advocate and resource for physicians and patients in order to ensure the highest quality of health care in the state of Michigan.
Michigan? It's a late night.
Wait. The 225th anniversary of being Maryland's foremost advocate and resource for physicians and patients in order to ensure the highest quality of healthcare in the state. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution be presented on this 20th day of January, 2024.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. The Synod of Maryland unanimously celebrates the wonderful organization and the incredible physicians with us. MedChi, congratulations on 225 years. We appreciate all the great work that you all do, your advocacy and your care for others. We are deeply, deeply appreciative. Thank you all. All right. I believe that does it for resolutions tonight, but we do have some guests. Senator from the 25th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just ask that you indulge me for a second and welcome a few guests that I have here that came to visit me in the office today. I have two phenomenal visitors for District 25. One is the only Prince Georgian who currently sits on a parole commissioner for the Maryland Parole Board, Commissioner Anthony McAllister.
Welcome, Mr. McAllister.
Additionally, I have a young scholar who is doing some amazing, phenomenal things within our district, within our county. And I'd like to just acknowledge him for all of the great things that he's doing and thank him for coming with his family to see how we operate here in the state of Maryland. Please welcome young scholar Aaron Ayodeji.
Welcome, Mr. Ayodeji. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for those introductions. Further introductions? Senator from the 40th District, Baltimore City.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, please join me in welcoming the president of Baltimore City Community College, Dr. Deborah McCurdy, who's joined us here on the floor.
Welcome, President McCurdy.
Mr. President, you and I share different locations of Baltimore City Community College in our district, but the community college is all of our community college, as it's, a Maryland supported institution. Up in the gallery joining Dr. McCurdy are members of her team. In the gallery behind us, we have Vice President Gus Augustus, Vice President Becky Burrell, Vice President Donna Thomas, General Counsel Maria Rodriguez, and Miss Lillis Green, the internal auditor. Please join us in welcoming this evening.
Welcome. Pleasure to see you all. And real progress happened. We've had a building under that Dr. McCurdy said that we were going to find a way to move along, and deconstruction's happened. We're going to have a great future ahead. It's wonderful. All right. Any further introductions? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce and recognize, although I don't see him, the doctor of the day.
There,
he's up
it's
there.
District
Okay.
11. Yes.
Dr. Ben Lowentritt. He's a urologist from District 11.
Excellent.
Thank you.
MedChi actually has a satellite office just in District 11. That is excellent. All right. Let's see. Any other guests? If not, all right. Let's go ahead and jump in. So the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We have introduction of Senate bills. This is calendar number 15. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 437, Carroll County Senators, Carroll County Contracts and Purchasing, Budget and Taxation. Senate Bill 438, Senator Reedy, Family Law, Fundamental Parents' Rights, Judicial. Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. They'll be referred to their appropriate standing committees. We have Senate bond initiatives, calendar 7. Clerk will read the bond initiatives. Number 1, Senator Rosa Beltsville Volunteer Fire Department 31, Budget and Taxation. Number 2, Senator Rosa
will be considered the reading of the bond initiatives. They will be referred to the Capital Budget Subcommittee. All right. Well, the desk is clear, but we do have a few more things for tonight. Let's go ahead and if we could do the pages first. The pages. Chair recognizes the co-chair of the Protocol Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Protocol Committee, it's an honor to introduce our pages. Our first page hails from Montgomery County. It's Abigail Bobrow. Abigail.
Welcome.
Our next page hails from Carroll County. That's Ryan Cave.
Welcome, Ryan.
Our next page hails from Anne Arundel County. It's Ella Floriton. Ella. Our next page is from Harford County. That is Ava Holloway.
Welcome.
And Mr. President, before I continue, I reminded all the pages if I skip one of them, they're supposed to raise their hand.
Oh,
But they
yes,
don't
very,
have the
very
list.
good, very good, yes.
Right. So our next page hails from Frederick County. It's Anusha Khan. Anusha.
Welcome, welcome.
Our next page hails from Prince George's County. It's Enoch Omateo. Enoch.
Welcome.
Our next page is from Baltimore County. Margaret Slusar.
Welcome.
And our next page hails from Baltimore City. Emelec Villegas Badillo.
Welcome.
That rounds out our pages, Mr. President. Thank you, pages.
Excellent. Welcome. So, Mr. Villegas, Vivian T. Thomas, yes? That's where I used to teach. Very good. Yeah, so you have to send it all, I don't know, is Miss Ford still there? Miss Ford? No, okay, well, I'll have to figure out something else, yeah. Long time, sad how long ago. Thank you. The good senator from the 41st reminds me that time keeps ticking. Time keeps ticking. Oh, that's good, yeah. All right. Well, all right. Onwards. Let's see, we do have a few more pieces of business, though, and a little bit more serious business. Would like to request that we ask the chair of the Veterans Caucus as a brief remarks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, today, some of us, I saw some of you all in Bowie today. Today was a viewing for one of our colleagues and a member who did tremendous work for the Veterans Caucus, Senator Douglas J.J. Peters. It was an honor on my behalf for me to have known him out there stomping on the campaign trail since 2000. So we have been together a long time. But he served this chamber well, and it was terrific to have had the opportunity to come over to serve with him in this chamber as well. Before he retired from the chamber. So I've asked, Mr. President, for members of the Veterans Caucus. I know that our majority leader closed out a session in his name, in his honor. But tonight I asked the President if members of the Veterans Caucus would like to stand up to say a few words. That would be greatly appreciated. You're honorary, you're good. So, but also, and then we want to end that, Mr. President, if we could, with the esteemed gentleman from District 23 who succeeded Senator Peters. So it was a terrific honor to work with him, a tremendous businessman, political strategist, lovely family, nice Catholic family of six kids, you know. But when I first met him, he was the mayor pro tem for the Bowie City Council. And we were on the campaign trail. He was running for the Prince George's County Council, and I was running for sheriff at the time, and we have been together ever since throughout all of our campaigns. Tremendous loss, too young, obviously, 60 years of age, but we never know what tomorrow brings. And that's why it's so important for each and every one of us to be of service to others. He touched so many people, and it was a small telling of that today if you had the opportunity to make it out to Bowie, and the outpouring of family and friends. And I think the most memorable thing for me today, having known him as long as I have, and remembering his kids when they were like this, like my son was, but they're all grown up. But they were in a great place today because of who he was. Sometimes that is very challenging for a family, particularly young members of a family, understanding where they are and the place that they and their mom and kids are. So it's always a good day when you recognize that you had the opportunity to serve with someone who was of service to his community, to the education system, to this chamber, and to the legacy that he leaves. So I thank you, Mr. President, and for any other members of the Veterans Caucus who'd like to stand up, please ring your bell.
Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore County, followed by the other senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remembered Senator Peters as the chair of the Veterans Caucus, and he served this country with honor. He served his community with pride, but he served his maker with reverence. And colleagues, as you know, in the game of life, every sport has a champion. Every champion has a journey, and every journey has an end. May the stalwart and patriotic champion rest in eternal peace. Thanks.
Well said. Thank you. Chair recognizes the senator from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. It was an honor to work with the good senator. Being in the same committee together, working together in veterans causes, his heart was in this. And you can see that. When he talked about the things that were important to him, you knew it was coming from his heart. But I thank God, I thank God for the opportunity that I was able to sit with him and talk with him when he was, at the time, he was working in the Capitol budget. And doing that, he always did exactly what I believe our good senator now does. He goes out and he meets with everyone. And he made it personal. And he also did that in the Veterans Caucus too. And he helped me a lot as being the vice chair. And he showed me great leadership. And I can definitely say I can call him a friend. But I do pray for his family and I pray for his kids. I pray that God would bless him and keep their family strong. But again, I can't say it enough. It was a blessing and it was an honor to work with Senator Peters. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from the 38th District.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Chair of the Veterans Caucus, for giving us this opportunity. Doug Peters was so kind, and I'll never forget that from my earliest days here in the Senate. And it was a kindness that just exuded. And I have special memories. There's a special connection there. He had his other home in Ocean City and spent a lot of time in his family. As a matter of fact, his oldest son, James, and Becky, and Russell, and Tommy moved down to my district in Glen Riddle, and I had the opportunity to get to know them, and I feel that's such a blessing. It's through Doug Peters that I'm now a member of the Special Olympics Maryland Board. Doug Peters went out of his way when he asked me, about priorities, and I told him about why the Life-Saving Museum in Ocean City at the very end of the boardwalk was important. And I explained that, it needs to be accessible to all, and it's not. And he understood it from the get-go and totally supported that project. And I think he also thought of it that it was his hometown too, his other hometown. And on the Veterans Caucus, Senator Doug Peters came down to my district. I represent the Worcester County Veterans Memorial in Ocean Pines. And during COVID, in 2020, we brought the Healing Wall of Vietnam to the Veterans Memorial. And I asked on behalf of the local foundation there if he would come down and if he would speak at that event. And to me, what was most memorable about that event, and when you talk about the Senate being a family, my Uncle Eddie is an Air Force Vietnam veteran who I've never heard him talk about Vietnam. And I didn't even think he would come to this event. So I told my uncle that I had a special friend that was coming down from the Maryland Senate. And my Uncle Eddie came to that healing wall. And I saw the two of them go off and have a few words. And I have a photo from that event with my Uncle Eddie, Doug Peters, myself, and my dad. And that's something that I will always cherish. And now I'm delighted that his family members, some of them are living in my district, so I know that connection with Doug Peters will always be there. And I'm trying to talk other members of his family to move down. So I really do appreciate this opportunity, Mr. Chair, to share my great respect for Doug Peters and love. And I also wanted to share that he was also someone you could talk about your faith with. And that's not always easy here in Annapolis. And I appreciated to have that in common with him as well. So again, Mr. Chair, this is so meaningful that we can do this and honor our friend, Doug Peters.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity. We all have stories of when we kind of first interacted with Senator Peters, and for me, it came when I first came to the chamber. He visited my district, talking about the capital projects I was interested in, took me out to dinner, mentored me, and obviously he has the kind, gentle demeanor that we're all used to with him. But what really captured me with him was when I deployed to Afghanistan. And he was really led the charge. He was the president. He was the chair of the Veterans Caucus at the time, and he was in charge of being the Blue Star leader, making sure the flag was flown over the State House, over the Senate building, but also making sure that folks in here didn't forget me. Folks would write letters and send care packages. And for those of us who've been deployed downrange, the care packages are really like a lifeline, and they really do break up the monotony of things. And it made me the most popular person in my unit because I always got, I was getting a care package like every day. And I had all the best goodies to give out and curry favors with my friends, and it made me really popular. But at the end of all of that was that there was someone here driving that process, making sure that I was not forgotten, checking in with my family, with my wife, checking in on my 1-year-old child. That is something that I will never, ever forget. And I shared that with his family tonight. But I think that exemplifies the type of public servant that he was, not only in the Bowie Council, but here in the Maryland Senate, but also just the type of loving person he was. You could have been thousands of miles away, and he still made sure that he was up at night making sure that those letters were off, those packages were off, and that our colleagues here were still thinking about someone that was not, right and before top of mind. And so, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing us to share that. That was just a remarkable thing for him. So, thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Senator.
As an associate member, can I just say one anecdote that came up today at the viewing that his wife remembered? I just wanted to share, and I actually share with a few other people. So in my district, we have this called the Canine Warrior Connection, which pairs a service dog to a disabled veteran who's come back. And Doug Peters was instrumental in getting a lot of money, capital money, bond bill money for this project. And so a couple of years ago, they asked me if I knew of any veterans. They like to name the service dogs after veterans who are deserving. There's a nomination process, a committee. So I did nominate Senator Doug Peters because they fell in love with him because of partly because of all the money that was going to this project, but they loved his story. And so his wife today remembered this. So there was a whole ceremony. I nominated him. They named a dog called Dougie. And there was a ceremony 2 years ago at the Canine Warrior Connection facility in Boyd's. And I checked in last week to see how Dougie was doing. And I told Corinne this today. And he's now paired up with a Afghanistan veteran, disabled paraplegic vet, and they're a great tandem, a great team. Anyway, just that anecdote. And I think even the senator from the 23rd said he's got some stories. There was a lot of, but the whole family, all the kids came down for the ceremony, and it was very emotional. And his wife mentioned it, remembered it today. So I just felt like it's one of those feel-good things that you do here in the Senate, and this was one of them. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Senator from the 41st.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Everyone here has said incredible things about an incredible person. And the only thing I would add is that, like many of you, the first time I really talked to Senator Peters was when he told me he wanted to come to my district to see the projects I was interested in. He did it. I thought it was special, but I hear he did it to everybody. I think that's the common theme. Everyone that stood up, we all think we were his special friend because that was his charm. That was his character. He made everybody feel special. He was loving and giving and very kind. And, you know, I learned a lot of things about him after meeting him, like he was highly successful, both in the Senate and in life. He was winning in life. And what resonates with me is that he wanted all of us to win too. You know, he really was a cheerleader rooting for everyone. And again, I thought, you know, he was rooting for me, but I come to find out he's rooting for all of us. He'll be sorely missed. His kindness. And I think what the lesson that I get, and I would hope we would all get from him, is that I don't know that he and I agreed politically on anything. But every time I stood up on this floor, he would text me and say, you go girl. So that's the lesson, that it doesn't have to be that we have the same political ideology, but we're human beings and we're sharing this space together because the people elected us. And it's sort of a responsibility to be kind and respectful and even root for your opponent sometimes. So I'm gonna miss Senator Peters a great deal. I really believed, as many of you, that I was on the beginning of a relationship that was gonna last a really long time, and I'm so sad that it's been cut short. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Senator from the 28th District.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity. I first met Senator Peters when I appeared here first day of session in 2019. And he came to me and said, you know, I'm kind of upset with you. I'm like, why? He said, you beat my boy. And I said, well, I need your help. Let's kind of get together. And 4 weeks later, he was in Charles County, making me feel special. Spent an entire Saturday going over the major project that we need in Charles County, meeting with county officials, a full Saturday. I'm like, oh, wow, what a guy. But, you know, the personal side, you know, we had a name for each other, and we just say it quietly to each other. I would say, what's up, Captain? He would say to me, what's up, Captain? Because both of us are captains, and we share that in common, and I just want to say, may the captain rest in peace.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from St. Mary's.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As many of you know, I was a policeman and wasn't a veteran, but I went to my first Veterans Caucus in 2019. And as I walked in, everybody was sort of talking about, you know, the different roles that they'd had in the military. And I said, well, I'm here because I want to be an advocate for veterans because I represent Pax Naval Air Station, and I also have the Charlotte Hall Veterans Home. And I said, and it's been a big part of my life growing up there, and I want to be able to do this. And I wrote a letter to Senator Peters saying how much I wanted to be a part of it and was that possible. And it wasn't only possible, I found out later that day that I was then the co-chair of the Veterans Caucus. And he said, yes, you can be an advocate. And I will have to say, when a certain member here got deployed, I do remember his conviction every day saying, okay, now whose care package is it today? You know, and he was so worried about you, Senator, and prayed for you every day. And it was just something, the respect that he had for all of us, the friendship that he showed all of us, we will all miss it. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from the 26th.
Thank you for this minute, Mr. President. Doug was like a brother to me. We, if you remember, Jim, I think you and I are the only ones here that remember this. Doug and I got elected together, and the first week of session, we had our delegation meeting. Senator Gwen Britt was voted in as chair, And I was voted in as vice chair, to which the then President Miller said, oh, he can't do any harm, let him learn, let him learn. And then that very night, to my dismay, I got a phone call saying that the good Senator Britt passed. I gave a eulogy at her funeral. And so I was then put in as the chair, and Doug was put in as vice chair. And the joke that we had among ourselves was that really neither one of us know what the heck we're doing, but let's just fake it till we make it. And that we did. And I was chair, he was vice chair, and then 4 years later he became chair and I became vice chair. It went that way back and forth. We were seatmates for about 7 years, and we shared every joke you can think of. He would keep me in line. He would say, Mish, you can't do this. You can't say that. Just wait, okay? If you have to do it, go pray. He was a great churchman, and his faith was always on display. And then finally, for the past 15 or so years, I would always mail him a card, a Christmas card. And on that card would be a picture of Pat and myself. And he would text me and say, as always, your wife is beautiful, and as always, you look like crap. And it was almost the same thing every year. This year, around the 23rd of December, I text messaged him the card. And generally, he will always text me back in a few moments, and the next day and the day after that, I got no text from him. And I texted him one last time. I was looking at my phone, and I said, we have to get together. Session is starting, and you know how we do. I said, you have to show me again, because I've been gone for 4 years and I've only been back once, so you have to show me where all the money is. So I'll pay for lunch, and then we'll talk. It wasn't long after that that I got the message that he had gone to heaven, and that's where he is. So he was my friend. I am thankful not almost a day went by when we weren't in each other's office planning and figuring out what to do about various issues. So may God bless him as he rests in peace. Thank you for allowing me to say that.
Well said. Senator from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, for the last couple weeks, I've heard how Doug Peters has touched each and every one of you. Fantastic stories that go back years and years and years. But to be able to succeed him and stand in his big shoes is a big deal. When I was appointed to the Senate, I went to the Senate President's office. I said, look, I want a pen. She said, well, senators have a way of losing pens. We don't have one for your district. Doug Peters came up and gave me his pen, and I'm wearing that pen that he gave me tonight. And there was a time, Mr. President, where Doug Peters was calling my wife at night, and I was wondering, hey, honey, what's going on? I didn't understand. 3 weeks later, he presented my camel hair coat, custom made. That's the kind of guy he was. There are few people that I can say who have changed the arc of my life. Doug Peters is one of them. And I wouldn't be here if it was not for this man. Some of you may know that I've known him for 18 years. He supported me when I was on the school board. I said, hey, I want to come and work with you in General Assembly. Well, Ron, I can't support you on that one. So I had to fight like, you know what, to be on his team. But once I was on his team, he was a teacher, a mentor, and a friend. We spoke weekly. And when he said to me, you know, I think my time is done. I want you to succeed me. I said, well, I'm the young guy. He said, no, you are the guy. And you're the right person to replace me. And I was honored to go under his tutelage. When he called me Honorable Dr. Major Ron Watson. And I would respond, Dougie, fresh. And that's how we referred to each other. He called my wife Little H, and we called him Triple H, H standing for honorable, because he's been in several positions and she was only in one at the time. But I just want to say it has been an honor. And my first big bill was changing something that had been in place since the 17th century in the state of Maryland, and that was changing the name of the Court of Appeals to the Maryland Supreme Court. And I was able to do that bill with him. And when I went to the viewing this evening and hugged his wife, she said to me, "You're one of the few people who saw him before he passed away." Because 3 weeks earlier, we were dedicating a wall at Bowie Performing Arts that listed every student he gave a scholarship to from Bowie High School all the way up to the last 2 years where I gave the scholarship. And we unveiled that wall for his family. A very, very private event, and just my wife and I. And so the opportunity came when I would go over his house from time to time, sit down with him, ask him some questions, usually to pick up stuff he wanted me to hand out in the street. But there was one occasion where he said, "I need you and your wife to come over." And this time it was different because it was the whole family. And he said, "Sit down, I need to tell you something." And it was the first time that I was told the truth about his condition. And they welcomed me in because they said, "We consider you a part of our family, and we want you to know what's going on." And I was put on a text thread, and every day I would get an update. Every week I would get an update. And so we knew what was going on. And even though Will Smith runs a lot faster than me, we ran in the multiple myeloma walk together to support Doug, and I was able to do that twice. And so he continues to leave a big impression on me, representing a district that he served for many, many years. And I just want to thank each of you for sharing your stories with me, sharing your stories with each other. He will be missed, and I will always keep him near and dear to my heart. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you to each of the senators who reflected tonight. It truly was an honor. This institution is a family, and you could see it tonight at the viewing. It truly was special to see the outpouring of love and support in the hardest times. We have another announcement that's adjacent. Senator from District 7, as only Senator Douglas J.J. Peters would want.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this past weekend's been pretty cold. And here in Maryland, only one thing happens when it's cold: the polar bear plunge. It's coming up. And I rise and say it tonight. It's not for 2 weeks. It's going to be February 2nd at 3 o'clock. We're going to plunge. We do the legislative plunge. But it was Senator Peters that, when I was sitting up front here one day doing announcements, he got up. I wasn't even paying attention, sitting there working on something, and he announced the polar bear plunge, and he challenged me to do it. And I remember looking at him like deer in headlights, like, what? Getting in the bay in cold water? But I did it proudly, and I've done it ever since. And it's something he loved. He did it for his grandson, Tommy. So I want to announce tonight that the polar bear plunge will be February 2nd at 3 o'clock, the legislative plunge, but we're going to call it the Senator Doug J.J. Peters Legislative Plunge. And we're going to ask that the Special Olympics actually call it that from now on. And I know a couple of us, I'm not going to announce anybody yet, but I've heard a few people are going to possibly come out with us in plunge. Mr. President's done it last year. And so with that, Mr. President, I just want to remind everybody, February 2nd for the Senator Doug Peters Legislative Polar Bear Plunge.
We'll see you there again in full suit. We do have one more, unfortunately, sad announcement. I want to recognize the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'm going to do this tonight, but then we'd like no more sad nights here in the Senate if we can do that, okay? We're very lucky to have wonderful, professional, and committed staff members here in the General Assembly. And each and every one of them is special, but this body was privileged to be served for many, many years by a very special woman, Beverly Hiltebittle. Bev began her career in legislature in 1975 as the legislative assistant to Senator Arthur Dorman. When Senator Dorman left the legislature in 2003, Senate President Mike Miller asked Bev to move to the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee as assistant to the chair. For the next 17 years, Bev was the heart and soul of B&T. Everyone who came into that committee room, from senators to staff to agency heads to lobbyists, were treated with the same love and care that Bev could provide. She was an invaluable resource for new staff and always had a chair next to her desk for anyone who wanted to sit down and chat, and for senators and staff, Bev was like a second mom. She took genuine interest in everyone's lives, and she kept in touch with many after she was no longer with the legislature. She had a special fondness for the state troopers who served in budget and tax, and always worried about them when they were out in the field. She always had to make sure they were fed. And in 2022, after her retirement, this body awarded Bev with the First Citizen Award, and the Senate President and I went to her home and gave that to her. She was so honored to have been thought of and said it was one of the greatest moments of her life. Bev was blessed with a wonderful family and so proud of the accomplishments of her children and grandchildren, and we are so appreciative to them for sharing their mom and grandmother with us for so many years. Bev passed away today, and the world is a little less bright. Bev had an infectious laugh and a huge smile that lit up her eyes, and I like to think that she, Senator Dorman, President Miller, and Senator Peters are together tonight enjoying a good laugh. And so I will motion tonight that the Maryland Senate adjourn in memory of Beverly Hiltobedo. But can I add one thing? Just want to say, Mr. Chairman of the B&T, we love your hot dog machine, but Bev really made good food for us every day. Just saying.
Tough to top Bev's cookies and treats. That was something else. She was amazing. She was wonderful. Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. All right, any further announcements before we adjourn this evening? If not, let's do a quorum call. Logistics announcements, Chair of the Caucus.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The Senate Democratic Caucus will be meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. in person in the Majority Caucus room.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Republican Caucus will be meeting at 8:30 in the Republican Caucus room on the 4th floor, and all are welcome.
Thank you.
You can come for a little while before your meeting if you'd like. We have party change forms on hand.
Thank you for that offer, Senator. Thank you. All right. Any further announcements? If not, again, thank you everyone for the remarks tonight. It really was special. Madam Clerk, if we could do a quorum call.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence here in the state of Maryland? So the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. The chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Tuesday, January 23rd at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. tomorrow. Stay safe, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.